Evaluating the greatest presidents in American history provides a true masterclass in extreme executive leadership under intense pressure. There is absolutely no universal management strategy. A tactical decision that rescues a failing organization today might bankrupt a healthy one tomorrow. Misalignment is fatal. Applying a careful, peacetime playbook to an active crisis guarantees institutional failure. Before making a single strategic move, an executive must answer one diagnostic question. What is your current organizational mandate? Most executives operate in one of three environments: total system collapse, stagnant maintenance, or aggressive hypergrowth. Attempting to crosswire these solutions, pushing for expansion when the foundation is collapsing, creates immediate operational chaos. To navigate these realities, we can extract 4 specific leadership archetypes from the most effective presidents in U.S. history. Identifying which archetype your current situation demands determines whether you lead your team to prosperity or become the architect of its downfall. The first archetype on the matrix is the restrained steward. This strategy relies on self-limitation. The executive voluntarily restricts their central authority, sets strict boundaries, and steps out of the way. George Washington established this blueprint. Despite possessing the complete loyalty of the army, he surrendered his military power and walked away from a potential kingship. Calvin Coolidge mirrored this restraint. After inheriting an administration mired in scandal and corruption, he barely spoke, choosing instead to quietly clean house and slash the national debt. This lack of interference restored public trust, creating the stability necessary for the massive organic growth of the Roaring Twenties. A steward succeeds by checking their own ego. However, this strategy only functions if the underlying organizational system is already healthy enough to run itself. When the mandate is scaling, the correct profile is the ruthless expander. This approach utilizes aggressive negotiation and immense unilateral leverage to force unprecedented organizational growth. Thomas Jefferson used this leverage when Napoleon was broke and desperate for cash, sliding in to offer $15 million for the entire Louisiana Territory. That single executive signature secured 828,000 square miles at roughly 3 cents an acre, doubling the size of the nation. James Polk utilized the same archetype to fulfill every campaign promise, acquiring over 1.2 million square miles through the annexation of Texas and the Oregon Treaty. But aggressive expansion often requires dismantling institutional norms. Andrew Jackson zeroed out the national debt, but his legacy is defined by the devastating ethical costs of the Trail of Tears. The expander delivers unbeatable market dominance, but the leader must carry the permanent moral stains that result from such aggressive tactics. If the foundation is broken, you need the systemic architect. This architect tears down failing assumptions to build massive, permanent structural programs. James Madison did this when he drafted the Constitution to replace a failing governing playbook. Franklin Delano Roosevelt deployed this strategy to combat the market failure of the Great Depression. The system he inherited was falling apart. Unemployment hit 25%, and the entire economy had reached a state of total collapse. FDR's response was the New Deal, a series of programs that rebuilt the country's infrastructure from the ground up and created Social Security. These structural changes transformed a failing economy into an industrial superpower, producing more planes and tanks than the world thought possible. The architect rebuilds an organization into a global heavyweight, but this comes at the cost of permanently inflating the size and complexity of central management. The final archetype, the resilient visionary, acts as the primary stabilizer during existential threats. This profile requires an executive to endure extreme psychological pressure and personal limitations while maintaining a singular, unifying goal. Abraham Lincoln faced a doubting cabinet and massive casualties while preserving the Union. He refused to quit, even when the public begged him to concede. Leading through a bloody crisis requires a level of grit that can withstand the weight of a fractured organization. John F. Kennedy demonstrated this wartime resilience during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He kept cool for 13 days of nuclear tension, negotiating a resolution without firing a shot. This focus also generates aspirational momentum. It turned a challenge to reach the stars into the first moon landing, proving that visionary leadership can pull a team towards goals once considered out of reach. The visionary is the only archetype capable of surviving the darkest hours, but it extracts a permanent physical and psychological toll on a leader. Executive effectiveness is defined by the environment the leader operates within. To choose the correct historical playbook, you must map your current organizational state to this matrix. In environments of system failure or existential threats, you need the architect or the visionary. Executives here must consolidate power and absorb massive stress to keep the organization upright. For scaling, the expander's playbook is highly effective, despite risks of cultural collateral damage. For teams recovering from burnout, the restrained steward provides space for organic recovery. If your organizational system is sound, the highest return on investment comes from setting clear boundaries and getting out of the way. Leadership legacy is often solidified by the power an executive chooses to surrender. As Washington proved twice, the most effective executives are the ones who know exactly when to walk away.